Hey everyone, I'm Hiro. Welcome back to the CISA exam prep series. Today, we are covering Chapter 2, Section 3, IT Policies, Standards, Procedures, and Practices. Now, imagine you are the CEO of a company. You stand up in a meeting and say, "Everyone, we need to manage our IT properly." People nod. Great speech. Then everyone goes back to their desks and does whatever they were doing before. That's the problem. Intent alone doesn't create action. If you only have one vague directive at the top, staff will interpret it differently. There's no clear chain from why to how. That's why organizations use a structured hierarchy. Policy sets the direction. Standards define the specific requirements. Procedures tell people how to do it step by step. Guidelines offer optional guidance, and practices are what actually happens in the field. Each layer makes the one above it more concrete. And that chain from intent to action is exactly what this section is about. The rule hierarchy. So, let's look at the full picture. The hierarchy has 5 levels. At the top, we have policy. Below that, standards. Then procedures. Then guidelines. And finally, practices at the bottom. Notice the badges on the right. Policy, standards, and procedures are all mandatory. You must follow them. Guidelines are optional. That's a key distinction we'll come back to. And practices aren't a document at all. They are what people actually do in the field. As you go down the list, the rules get more and more specific. Policy is abstract. Procedures are concrete. Think of it as zooming in. Policy, the Constitution. Let's start at the top. Policy. Think of policy as constitution of an organization. Just like a country's constitution sets the principles for how laws are made, an organizational policy sets the principles for how everything else is structured. There are 4 key characteristics. First, it's created by senior management, the board of directors, not the IT team, not field staff, the people at the top. Second, the content is high level. A policy says what to achieve. It does not say how to achieve it. For example, a policy might say, information resources shall be controlled to prevent unauthorized access. That's it. No details about passwords or encryption. Just the direction. Third, it's mandatory. Everyone in the organization must comply. Fourth, it rarely changes. A well-written policy can stay the same for years. But it must be reviewed at least annually to make sure it's still relevant. That last point matters for auditors. If a policy hasn't been reviewed at least once a year, that's a red flag. Standards and procedures. Now, let's go one level down. Standards and procedures. Both are mandatory, but they play different roles. Standards define specific requirements. They answer the question, what level must be met? Standards don't change often, but they are updated when needed. For example, passwords must be at least 12 characters. That's a standard. Clear, specific, measurable. Procedures go one step further. They are the step-by-step manual. They answer how to do it. They are mandatory, and unlike standards, they are updated frequently as business processes change. For example, Step 1. Submit an access request. Step 2. Get manager approval. Step 3. Set a password of at least 12 characters. Step 4. Save. Here's a simple way to remember the difference. The standard is the rule on the speed limit sign. The procedure is the driving manual that tells you how to check your speedometer and when to brake. Both mandatory. Standards say what, procedures say how. Guidelines, the exception. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Look at the top row. Policy, Standards, procedures, all mandatory. If you violate them, there are consequences, but guidelines, optional. This is the one exception in the hierarchy. Guidelines are recommendations, helpful guidance, but you can deviate from them as long as you have a valid reason and document it. Here's a real example. A guideline says, passwords should be at least 8 characters, but the system you are auditing uses biometrics only. There are no passwords at all. The guideline simply can't apply. In that case, deviation is completely fine. You just need to document we use biometrics authentication, which provides stronger control. The keyword for auditors here is documented. Deviation is okay. Undocumented deviation is a problem. Practices what auditors check. This is the slide that ties everything together. Documents exist. That does not mean controls work. The gap between documentation and actual behavior is exactly what auditors are looking for. Controls are embedded in procedures, but auditors go further and verify that those controls are actually practiced in the field, not just written down. When practices don't match documentation, you can't confirm that controls are working, and if you can't confirm it, it's a finding. So, the auditor's core question is always this: are the rules actually being followed in the field? Alright, let's wrap up. Policy is management's direction. It's mandatory, rarely changes, and must be reviewed at least once a year. Standards are specific mandatory rules, like passwords must be at least 12 characters. Procedures are the step-by-step mandatory manuals. They are updated frequently as systems and processes evolve. Guidelines are the one optional layer. Deviation is acceptable as long as the reason is documented. And practices are what auditors actually verify. Not just, do the documents exist, but are people actually following them in the field? Alright, that's it for section 3. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.